Okay, we've got to talk more about the Nazca mummies. This is getting really interesting, guys. So get in here. This is Jack with Cosmic Road. I'll talk about UFOs and the paranormal. Please hit like and subscribe and let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Yeah, I was reading some of your comments the other day about the DNA result analysis. And I saw several people thinking that means it had the Nazca mummies had been debunked somehow. That Maria was a human. She's got scaly skin, no nipples, no navel, 3 fingers, 3 toes. Elongated skull, bigger cranial capacity than we do. Definitely not human. So what is she? What is she, guys? Oh, and of course, the forensic expert Dr. John McDowell has said that she was indeed a once living being, that she was genuinely tridactyl. So anyway, all the science backs up that Maria was indeed a once living being and that she is non-human. And yet she has DNA that's 95% aligned with humans. And I think that really corroborates, or it's one more piece of evidence that the Nazca mummies were connected to the abducting alien race. And here's how I got there. And this has a really interesting connection to the Betty and Barney Hill story. Now, before I get any further, I just have to give kind of a disclaimer about DNA. As a layman, about DNA, I used to think that, DNA results were rock solid. You present DNA results, well, that's ironclad. That's the silver bullet. That proves something or other, right? Well, unfortunately, DNA is a little bit more wibbly wobbly than all of that. Depends on the protocols you use, the equipment you used, and of course the sample. Was it degraded? Is there contamination? In Maria's case, the Canadian researchers were able to, sequence and analyze her DNA, but they didn't have the whole sequence. So we don't know, 95% out of what percent aligned with humans. We really don't have the full picture of the DNA from Maria, and Maria is seemingly so far the best preserved of the mummies whose DNA they have analyzed. So we may or may not ever get, conclusive ultimate, DNA or genetic understanding of the Nazca mummies. Hopefully we're going to get more than we've got now. Hopefully we'll get some further insight and understanding. But I think that we just kind of have to look at the bodies themselves, and a lot of work has been done on that. For example, by Dr. John McDowell and many others. The Mexican, Peruvian teams have done amazing work, and we know so much more about the mummies because of them. For example, Maria seems to have had a hard life, whereas Montserrat, living in a different time period, and maybe because of a caste system, we just don't know, had a much easier life. And the very different, the crazy differences between those two, even though they were both human looking or human sized, they look different, similarities, but they look different. And also Montserrat would have had a live birth, whereas Maria may have been sexless or hermaphroditic. We just don't know. But okay, let's get back to the DNA of Maria and how this ties in with my belief, my theory. I think the facts pretty well support it, that the Nazca mummies were connected to the abducting alien race and the weird connection it has with Betty and Barney Hill. Now, when I first learned about Maria's Asian DNA, my mind instantly went to the Peter Corey story. I don't know if you know Peter Corey, but real quickly, let's go over the Peter Corey story. Peter Corey, Hair of the Alien case, is an excellent case study in applying forensic DNA techniques to a biological evidence implicated in an apparent alien abduction experience that took place in Sydney, Australia. This is, he was seduced by, 2 hybrid women, and one of the hairs of one of the women wrapped around an intimate part of his body. He kept the hair. The hair was studied. So what were the results of that DNA? Well, the results were Asian, or more specifically, particular Chinese genetics. Now, we know that Maria seems to have had a Chinese DNA. And that's not the end of the story. This is where it gets even more interesting because there is a connection to Betty and Barney Hill. Yeah, check this out, guys. This is amazing. Yeah, here's briefly the story of Betty Hill and her dress. When she and Barney were taken, she struggled and the aliens were trying to unzip her clothes. They had trouble unzipping her clothes. Her dress was torn. Ultimately, she helped them with unzipping her clothes, and the clothes wound up on the floor. The dress wound up on the floor. And after her abduction experience, and yeah, it was weird that the aliens couldn't figure out how to do a zipper. I mean, they've got a UFO, but no zippers? Okay. One of the many weird things about the phenomenon. But yeah, check this out, guys. After the event, when Betty and Barney Hill arrived home, she undressed and got to bed. Betty related the following in a letter dated October 31st, 2001. When I returned home that morning, I put my dress folded in the bottom of my closet, where it remained for several days, but quickly changed my mind. I decided to put it outdoors in the sun. The powder blew away, but leaving the stains. The pink stains were most prominent where the aliens purportedly touched the dress. Betty did not notice any odor emanating from the dress. Yeah, so there you go. That's what happened. Weird pink stains on her dress after this abduction. The dress was analyzed. DNA was taken and analyzed. There was, of course, bacteria. They compared it with the mouse. They compared it with Betty's DNA. And this is the interesting thing, where it's pertinent to today's conversation. They didn't find any alien DNA, unfortunately. Or did they? Because they did find unknown human mitochondrial sequence from the YY M22 D loop partial sequence, etc. But this is the genetic structure of Hmong Mien speaking populations in East Asia, as revealed by mtDNA lineages. So there you go. Let's just assume that this DNA was done correctly and that this information is solid. That is another connection. There is apparently some sort of hybrid, possibly, speculative here, that was just like Maria, of Asian extraction. Part of her DNA or its DNA, was Asian. That is so weird, guys. Same thing with Peter Corey. Same thing with Maria. The beings seem to like taking genes from China and using them in their creations. Yeah, so there you go. We have 3 examples. Maria, Peter Corey, and Betty Hill, where DNA was taken from these beings, and it was Asian DNA. That is super fascinating. Does that mean there's some sort of ancient human race possibly involved in all this? Some sort of Atlantean thing? I tend to think that this means that the abducting race, who have these hybrids who seduced Peter Corey, they take DNA from around the world, and for some reason, in these 3 cases, they prefer to use Asian DNA for the beings they are creating. I think that is super fascinating, guys. All 3 cases, Asian DNA from these beings that people are interacting with. So what does that mean for Maria? Well, we know that, for one, the Nazca mummies had implants. They had multiple implants, sometimes throughout their bodies. And alien abductees also have implants. Much smaller, they seem to designed to make it difficult to detect them, whereas the Nazca implants are much larger and maybe even cruder. It's clearly a different technology, or at least it seems like a different technology, but it seems to have its roots in the same technology or culture. A culture that, likes to put implants in beings they are working with for whatever reason. Love to know what that reason is. But that seems to be a thing. So what else do we know? Well, we know that some of the mummies have a striking resemblance to what we think of as gray aliens. So could some of that DNA that is unknown be gray alien DNA? I've recently gone over a DNA analysis by an unnamed Redditor, unnamed anonymous molecular biologist, going over the DNA analysis of gray aliens or some gray adjacent being. So they did have DNA, and could some of that DNA have found its way into the Nazca beings? We also know that the abducting race or races really engage heavily in genetic engineering. The hybrid program, for example, or predominantly what we know about their involvement in genetic engineering comes from the hybrid program, but is a huge, robust program that they are engaged in, and possibly have been doing this for many, many years. How far back? Well, if indeed they abducted somebody from Asia and took their DNA to create Maria and possibly other beings back almost 2,000 years ago, then they've been doing it for at least that long. Now, of course, there's, possible time travel, right? Maybe they just popped back in time for some reason and did that. Yeah, you never know, guys. That's why I hate time travel. Either way, Maria had Asian DNA, human DNA, even though she's not human. I mean, she's got scaly skin, guys. Scaly skin, sexless. Yeah, all the other stuff. We also know that the DNA found on Betty Hill's dress was Asian, as well as the Peter Corey episode. So that is super fascinating, and I think more evidence of the connection between the Nazca mummies and the abducting alien race. The Nazca mummies got implants. They look, in many cases, like gray aliens. They seem to be the products of genetic manipulation, just like we know the beings engage in. And now we know they are even taking DNA from the same places and using them in their experiments. This is wild. This is crazy. I wish I understood it. What's it all about, guys? I would love to know your theories in the comments below. So yeah, let me know what you think. Like, subscribe, support the channel by buying some merch, t-shirt, coffee mug, all that kind of good stuff. And there's plenty of other videos on the channel. And I will see you guys next time. This is Jack with Cosmic Road, signing out.